Hey everybody, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands Quincy, Justin, and John. How is everyone today? Coffee. I kind of wish I had coffee. I kind of do. Hi, Quinty. Hello, everybody. Yay, it's day. Hey, and I just remembered to bring my palette at the last minute, so I don't have to run and get it for once. Amazing. Progress. Motor City Ray, 27 months, dang. Yeah, happy holidays, Ray. It's December. How did it get to here? Crazy talk. Hey, Clavicus. Yes, indeedy. It is the December. Soon it will be 2022. Wow. The last 2 years have been kind of rocky. Let's hope that 2022 gets its button gear and is like truly awesome. We're going to set up to do some bone today. I'm going to do that staff. Maybe some other parts too. Yeah, right? Morning, everybody. And Freestyle with the Prime sub. 25 months worth of Prime. Wow. That's insane. Like I always say, you people who remember to resub your Prime, like I bow down before you because I never do. I never do. Dang. But yeah, it's morning. I have a kind of disrupted day today because I have a car appointment. My car needs servicing. Always fun because, you know, David's at work, so I'm going to have to sit at the car place. But I have stuff to do, so shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, for sure. Reaper emotes. So I actually think we used Nut Brown for this, which is an interesting choice on the part of my impulsive self, but we can do that. Come here, Nut Brown. Yeah, I want to keep it around. Yep. That works, actually. So we're going to bring this up. The key here is we can't go too gray. You can't go too gray with this bone because so much of the rest of the model is vibrant. It has very, very vibrant colors. So we want to stay more saturated with the bone, even if we start with this brown. I do want to put a wash, like when I've got bone that's very detailed like this, I will actually, it's one of the few times I will use a wash to set up some really dark shadows. So we're going to use brown liner, which is what I almost always use if I'm going to do this sort of thing. Because I want the cracks and the deep crevices of the bone to be very dark. If you look at really old ivory or bone implements, usually what you see is that over time, the cracks have, gotten a bunch of grime or whatever in them, and they're just really black. So we're emulating that. Oh, yeah, the yawn attack. It's real. There we go, brush on sealer. Remember to shake your brush on sealer a lot. Until you can see the little agitator, you can't see it there anymore. You want to not see that little agitator. Shake it till you can't see it. And I like to kind of vary the position of the bottle in my hand to try to get it all in solution. A little faster. If you've got a vortex mixer, you're probably fine. See, you're just too distracted, Shadow Raven. Too distracted. Focus. Be in the moment. Channel your inner Zen Raven, if that's a thing. All right, so we're getting there. So what happens is essentially the medium that's in here, you can see it there. See that little rim of pale stuff? That is the matting medium. It's really fine, and that's why it takes so long to get in solution. When my sealer's been sitting in one place for over a month without getting used. If you use your sealer regularly, you don't have to shake like this. But you want all that goo to be in solution, not sitting in the bottom of your bottle. And sometimes I'll even, if I have an extra agitator, which I do, I'll even do that to get it in there. All right. So the reason that you want to get all of this in solution is that if you don't do it, your matting medium will essentially kind of sit here and it'll slowly go in solution as you use your sealer. And this is not a good thing because then it means that your ratio of sealer to the matting agent gets overdone. And when you have too much matting agent and too little sealer, that's when you get frosted effects. So you don't want that, obviously. Where is my... I thought I had my little... Ah, yeah. So because I've been at Reaper for forever, I have the original agitators. I have a jar of skulls. So when I get frustrated, or I just decide I want this stream to get moving, I'll take out one of my little skull agitators. Little skull agitator. And I will put it. Reaper used to sell these like a few Reaper cons. I don't know if they still do. I doubt it. But you could get a jar of skulls. And I bought a jar of skulls at one point. So I still have a bunch of them. Now I have a fresh agitator in here and it's going to go a lot faster. Agitators, you know, there are paint companies who will say, oh, our paint doesn't need an agitator, blah, blah, blah. You know, they'll do that. Yeah, right. Like, I always added agitators to all my paints. It just makes everything shake up so much faster. Like, why would you not, really? I mean, it is an extra cost, so... But then don't, like, you know, don't say it's like, oh, your paint is bad if it needs an agitator. No. All paint is helped by an agitator. All water-based paint. And probably solvent as well is helped by the addition of an agitator. There we go. So, I have unfortunately put a very large puddle of paint in here. So, actually, you know what? I'm going to make a whole new puddle because I was going on my 4 drops thing, which is autopilot, remember? So I always know. But when you're making a wash, you actually want to do it a little bit more. Normally, I would do a 1 drop of paint, 4 drops of sealer, and 2 drops of water ratio. However... today I am going to be using a little bit stronger. I want a little stronger mix, so I'm going to use 2 drops of paint. Start out with that. Also, liners tend to thin down faster because they are a little bit translucent out of the bottle. So keep that in mind. Boop, 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 boop. So 4 drops of sealer, 2 drops of paint. Boop. There we go. And then 2 drops of water. Right, Granica, right? Hey, Coobs, thanks for the Prime sub. 23 months. You almost have the song. Almost. Let's see here. Just catching up. Just catching up. All right. 2 drops. There. So, the more sealer you add, the more kind of translucent and goopy your paint will get. Transparent. Like, the pigment will kind of... become see-through, but it also is going to still be goopy. It's not going to flow as well. The more water you add, the more it will flow, but the less it will hold together. That's why you use both. Our brush-on sealer also acts like a matte medium in that way. So now I've got this. When you mix a wash, you can look at the edge of your palette if you're using a well, and with washes, you should be using a well. You can look at the edges of your well to judge how dark that wash is going to be. The color that you see on the white is how much it's going to discolor the surface of what you're putting it over. Now, pardon me while I add a little water to my initial liner mix as well. Now we're starting with a pretty dark color with this nut brown. So we're not going to see actually a lot of difference when we add this wash over the top. Boom. Yeah, there we are. Ah, that's okay, Coos. It happens. Work gets busy. Life gets busy, especially around the holidays. We understand. So I am going to apply this wash liberally. There are times when you don't care. Like this actually, it probably is discoloring the surface a little bit too much for me. But there are times when I don't care about that because I'm just trying to get a darker shadow. And this is one of those cases. With bone, I usually don't care. I know I'm going to highlight it up pretty extremely. So if it discolors my initial brown, I am not concerned. I'm looking to start pretty dark so that I can get a lot of contrast and make all these details on this staff stand out. In general, if you want your wash to show up and really bring details out, you want to start with a lighter color than this. And the lighter your base color, the more your details will pop out with a wash, but also the less natural it will look. So like if you take a light green and you put a dark green wash over it, all of the details will pop out great, but it's not going to be very, like, it's not going to be a very natural transition. So washes, whether they're successful or not, really depend on your goals. Nope. Julie's got enough to do. She doesn't need to be bugged to do some pokey tool for me. Besides, how would I distribute it? Like, I'd have to, like, figure it out. Right now, that's the least of my priorities. All right, I'm going to actually take this brown liner. Whenever I see kind of a piece of, like, right under here, there's a bit of bones material that didn't get base coated. So I'm going to just block in that brown liner. So now you can see a little bit. It's still drying, so it's very hard to see. But I did get a little bit of relief there. Just a little, though. While I'm waiting for that wash to dry, I'm going to try to mix up my next color. I want to go warm and yellowy. I think I'm going to go for... Where's my yellowed bone? I thought I had yellowed bone around here. I thought I was keeping it around. Did I put it somewhere else? Did I put it over here? I seem to have kept like every color out except the color I needed. One sec. Let me see if I can find it. I really wanted my yellowed bone. Crow pokey, huh? Cool. One sec. Well, that's not adequate. I appear to have eaten my yellowed bone. I do have my stained ivory, which of course is canceled because some people cancel really good colors. Looking quickly through my RVE colors to see if I have something that's similar. If you actually have the Gloom and Grave stuff, actually I might have that nearby. Hold on. Ah, wrong one. Well, Griffin Golden Brown maybe. Hold on. Let's maybe use Griffin. Ah! Ah, that's a pretty dark color. Well, maybe we can use it. I did find my Gloom and Grave stuff the other day. And then I lost it again. Yeah. Really did think maybe I put my yellowed bone in the other room. That's possible. So will this work? Maybe actually. So Griffin Golden Brown. Gettable as one of those awesome fast palettes. Let's use that. It's kind of more like the old Chestnut Gold, but we can do that. Yeah, I just don't have all those specialty paints and the RVE stuff like close at hand because I don't use a lot of them. Every once in a while, one will latch onto my consciousness and I will get like, oh yeah, that. Nice, Karinico. Yes, convert them all. Does Reaper have Poke Tools for sale regularly? Like, can you get them in the store? Or is it con only? I always forget. So I'm going to use a mix of Nut Brown and this Griffin Golden Brown. which is a very pretty color. We should use Griffin Golden Brown more often. It's very, very nice. It's a very pretty warm tan. See it? It's a lovely color. Probably going to mix pretty well with nut brown too. And my wash is drying. It's getting there. You can see how it's outlined some of the details, but see how that outlining is very subtle because we used a very dark color, relatively speaking, with the nut brown. I think I might do a little bit. Well, no, actually this might be okay. I want some contrast here. I may have to add just a drop of something lighter, but I think I'll start with this. I'll start with this warm brown. So this is Griffin Golden Brown with a little bit of nut brown. It's a 4-to-1 right now. I might actually make it a 4-to-2. So 2-to-1. Want a little bit there. Yes, good. Pokey Tools. Excellent. Thank you for the link, Quindy. So yes, you can buy Reaper Pokey Tools, and they are so useful. You should keep them near you and not misplace them like Shadow Raven does. I personally get around this problem by having at least 4 of the dang things, and at any one time, I probably can lay my hands on 1. But as long as I can always find 1, I'm okay. Oh, we would do a dragon. We would do the painting big dragon. Turgeon. That's why I say, honestly, it's a better thing for a magnesium plate because I've got the logo. Like, I think my painting big is over here. Yeah, it is. Boop. We do Mr. Dragon, like a dragon head, or an oval with a dragon head in it. Oh, nice. That's very good, Quindy. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, because they were very time-consuming for a long time. Yeah, Kroniko. Well, you know, all you have to do is say, nope, I'm working on my own stuff. You'll have to paint it yourself. Yeah, so I figure the painting big dragon in just like kind of an oval shape with the dragon raised on it, that would be a good pokey tool. So yeah, I've got the design. I mean, it wouldn't take much. Yeah, this is why I regularly clean up my desk. Both desks. So I'm going to start bringing in this golden brown to bring up this. And I'm using this warm color as an under because I want the, like I said, we want the bone to be very warm and not grayed out or it will clash with him. So this brown is pretty neutral, especially when I put it over this really dark nut brown plus brown liner. It should be a fine base for warm bone. Yeah, I mean, I might be able to even sculpt it myself when it comes down to it. It's just like I said, this is not a huge priority. I'm sure Julie has like other projects that she needs to do for Reaper too. But yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to have a dragon Poké Tool, for sure. It's just there's so much else to do. There's so many other things to do in the day. You gotta prioritize. For my life, I have to prioritize really heavily to keep myself moving. It's like self-defense at this point. So I'm just gonna go and just kind of touch up each of these little bony bits. Just on the top side, really. You can see that coming up. Yeah, too many things to do. Right, Julie? Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard if I cut out the logo, sorry. If I cut out the logo and I like found something, like I used my shrinky version and I found a metal, a metal base maybe, or something to put it on. It wouldn't be hard. I could use some brass sheeting. I've got some brass sheeting. It probably would not be hard to sculpt that. Like, I could sculpt it. I could sculpt it, like, as well as an Anne could, which, probably wouldn't be too bad. Because I've got the pattern, so it's just copying a pattern. It doesn't have to have a lot of relief on it. It just needs to have the shape. So I feel like that's doable even for noob sculptor me. It would probably be good practice. But it's just finding time. If I was smart, it's something I could probably work on while David's parents were here. Because if I was sitting there doing something creative while they're all talking, like, that would probably be okay. I'd still be being sociable while I was sculpting. Oh, yeah. Well, with Julie, you know. Well, maybe we'll have an email. Maybe we'll have to email and figure out the price. The price of a dragon poke tool. There we go. So just highlighting the top edge here. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of my nut brown so that I can touch up and blend in areas if the delineation gets too stark. I do like to have everything blend, so I'm going to just grab some nut brown and mix up a very small puddle of it so that I have that to blend in this new color. First, I'd have to probably talk to Ed and ask him, hey, Ed, if I do a pokey tool for my Patreon logo, can you guys cast me some? You know, if I have Julie sculpt it, will you put it on mold for me? You know, that kind of thing. I like to always check with the Ed. You don't want to just spring something on the Ed. You always want to ask. Usually Ed will say yes, because Ed is a really nice guy. Oh, I ruined his rep there. Sorry. I mean, Ed is a terrible dragon of a man and would never say yes, but I might be able to get him to say yes. How about that? I already have a present for you, Julie. I was going to hide it and present it to you at ReaperCon, but if you want to do barter, the present that I was already going to give you was this. So if you think that that is a fair trade for a little pokey tool, we could talk. Or I could just give it to you because I'm nice. I was going to give it to you anyway. Kickstarters are never an easy win, D Sparrow. Get that right out of your mind. Kickstarter is, first of all, never easy and not always a win. You have a present for me too? Oh no, this barter thing is already breaking down. Oh dear. But yes, I wanted to, I've been trying to catch up with I've been wanting to paint stuff for the various sculptors for a while. And when I did that Sphinx, I really liked her. And I was like, I could sell this, but I think I'd rather give this to Julie. The present war is escalating. I know, right? This is the problem with nice people. People who like to do nice things for their friends. Speaking of selling, I'm going to put up I think it might be the day. It's either this day or Friday. I'm going to put up the Dragonborn from the first paint along we did on my Patreon for sale. So if you're a patron, you can bid. And my Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig. So yeah, if anybody ever wanted an Anne model, I'll be doing like one a month or one every 2 months, I think, for sale. Depends on what I've got. There we go. So now we've got a nice warm coat. So yeah, that's a nice color. And it's not clashing with anything. You can see that, right? So we've got a long way to go to highlight this up, but it's doable. And we can absolutely still make it look, it may not look like bone at all right now. It looks more like wood, but it can, we can deal with this. Trust me, this is just the starting point. I like to, and this is because of Jennifer, my friend Jennifer Haley, who is, you know, Ms. Famous Mini Painter, more famouser than me. Famouser is totally a word, but she always did her bone starting very, very dark, and I always really loved the look of it. It was like old and, you know, crumbling bone, sometimes rotting bone. It looked really good, so I adopted this liking for very dark shadows and for building bone up from a very, very dark base. Have fun, Crowley. Twist your arm, you love that paint job. Well, she's yours either way, Julie, so we'll just have to talk. We'll have to figure out what, maybe I do still have to do a model for Bob. I don't know what Bob might want me to paint. Like, what's Bob's favorite model that he would want painted by Anne? You know, given. But we can talk. We can talk. Talk over the pokey tool. There. All right, so we've got this kind of figured out. I'm not putting a lot of detailing on the face because it's on the underside, but I am picking out a little bit of detail down here with my dark browns. A lot of the lightest colors won't go down here unless we make this lantern light up. But even then, if you look at it, the lantern top is blocking most of the face of the skull. Like, so when you look at something like a lantern and whether you want to do it lit or not, remember that the light isn't going to go through the top of the lantern. So this top piece is going to totally block any light. So like the light will come up like at this angle because this is the best line I can draw from an area that's emitting light out. And it's not really even going to hit anything except this horn here. So this is all still in shadow if I do this lantern. If that makes sense. This is the best kind of thing for OSL as far as having the object that's glowing up against other things, but it's also not a great place for OSL because it's like blocking the light off from all this, and you've got shadows here on either side. So now then you've got to light up your shadows, which sometimes works fine, but it's just not ideal, so you'd have to work with it a bit. I am going to take I wish I had my yellowed bone. I don't know where I put it. I'm very annoyed. And that's not quite warm enough. Desert sand is not quite warm enough. I might have to go straight up to the creamy ivory. Let's just try that and see how it looks. Osirian sand or creamy ivory. So we're going to go to Griffin Golden Brown. We're going to mix in a couple of drops of creamy ivory. I've been using a lot of Osirian sand lately, so let's go and do the ivory this time. So let's do it 2 to 2. So 2 drops of Griffin. And again, Griffin Golden Tan, 29143. I think it's in the basic Adventure Colors paint set. It's a really pretty color. Reminds me a lot of the canceled Chestnut Gold, except maybe even a little bit warmer, which I really appreciate. So if you're looking for a sub for that canceled color, pick up that Dungeon or that Adventure Colors set if you don't already have it. Or dig that color out of it if you've got it and you've buried it like I do with all of my fast palettes. I seem to like always be misplacing them. All right, so that is not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is it's going to go too orangey. So I really need this to go up more of a yellowish bony color. And so this color is very orange. And so this is where we're going to see that color come out. Remember, when you add a lighter color or white to a dark color, you start to really see what pigments are in it. So this is a little bit too orange. Now, I could fight that by adding in a yellow, even a bright yellow, like sun yellow. But I don't want my bone to be too orange. That's not a color. You see yellowed. It's a little bit better, but I feel like we still need it to go paler. Let's do another drop of creamy ivory. That Griffin Golden Brown is very strong pigmented. Probably as a yellow. There we go. That's more like what I want. And then this can get transferred over. 2 big brushfuls of that. And 2 drops. Now we're getting up to a nice, better bone color. And bone could be, you know, a bit brownish, or it can have a little bit of this like browny orange tone to it, but as I drop things, because it's how I roll. Hey, Twistedoma. So we're using quite an interesting progression of colors here. And I ended up not using that. Okay. Boop. There we are. Now what's interesting too is that the nut brown that we started with has a purplish tone to it, and the colors that we're ending with have yellowish shift. So we're actually doing complementary colors. I'm going to drop a couple drops of water into both of these since I was adding creamy ivory and it has a high load of white. In order to get it to go decently translucent for layering, I need to add a lot of water. This probably isn't even enough water. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush also because as I'm thinning these paints down so much because they have a lot of white, I need to get control. So the easiest way to do that is to switch to a smaller brush. So let's see how this rolls. So that's coming up nicely. So this is the Griffin Golden Brown with a drop of Sun Yellow and several drops of Creamy Ivory to lighten it. Remember to leave a bit of the colors that you have already laid down. Don't lose them all. That's called losing your midtone when you paint over that. You can also lose your shadows. So on something like this skull, I might go back and forth a little bit to make sure that I'm keeping all my colors because it's one of the bigger, flatter surfaces. That's a little bit too thick. See how you see the demarcation line there? So we can grab our previous color. Mix it in a little bit. When you do see that, it probably means that you did indeed, you haven't thinned your paint enough. But I want this paint to kind of show the crisp edges of all these vertebrae and stuff. So I don't think I want to go too thin with it, or it's not going to carry on these little surfaces where a drop of paint doesn't need to be blended in. Anytime you've got a little tiny surface like this, you really don't need to blend it. Like, it's so small that the visual effect will be carried even just with a little tiny touch of paint. If you want to try to blend some of the bigger areas, you can, but it's not necessary. So I'm mostly going to put these highlights on the top areas and leave the lower parts of the bone staff in more of shadow. So let's get these little kind of rib or vertebrae edges sections. So now we're starting to get it looking a little bit more like bone, right? But because our shadows are so dark, we're getting a lot of these details to stand out really well, which is nice. Bring in some of this a little bit down here, just on the edges of things. the edges that are kind of facing upward, so they'll get a little bit of light. But you want to leave that dark in the cracks. So that all of your bits show up. And whenever you think you've lost some of your original nut brown, you can bring it in a little bit. Mixing some nut brown with my initial bone color here just to get a little bit of highlight down below, because bone is pale, so it will reflect light underneath. But I mostly want my highlights up top. So see, that brought in a little bit of detail down there, but we still have a lot of light up top. Blorf. So when you do that, you can bring in your water and just dig that blorf out. Or you can bring in your liner and just touch it up. Up to you. Sometimes the surface might be a little bit unevenly cast. This is a bones black, so it's pretty good. But you can still see a little bit of uneven surface here and there. Just sometimes with the way the sculpt has taken on the mold. This is coming along nicely. I will probably glaze with a light color at the end. We'll see. But when you go from an extreme dark to an extreme light, sometimes you can do a glaze toward the end to unify everything. Make it blend a little bit nicer. I also have to always be looking at it in regard to everything else on the model to make sure that nothing is clashing, that it looks good. The biggest problem in bringing out all these details on this staff is just that, like everything else on this model, it's terribly busy. So I may need to do a glaze of bone color over the entire thing just to kind of tie it together and separate it out from all the rest of this crap going on, right? Which is kind of the point of, if you remember, of painting this model in the first place. It's a terribly busy model with so much going on, and sometimes that's very challenging to paint. I think I'm going to try to go up to my next... I want to get the tail end of this staff. Hold on. Let's get the tail end. Make sure we've got these horns done. So we still haven't hit the highest point of the bone here. But now we've got a pretty good start on it. All right, let's go and do the tail end of the staff. And often with like long bones, I will do kind of a striping texture. Lets me suggest breaks sometimes. The texture may be very light indeed when I first start it, and then I'll bring it up over time. There we go, a little bit of stripiness on the tail end. It just helps to, and it's the same kind of thing you do maybe to suggest wood grain. Though I actually think most wood grain is way too fine to be depicted in 28mm. Just going to bring up some areas here. There we are. Just makes it a little more interesting. And again, if I do a glaze at the end, this is all going to blend in a little bit more and become subtle, but still there. Hello, Dogfather. There's some little nicks and stuff in the staff that I can also bring out, whether they're again at like a casting or molding artifact, or if they're actually meant to be there, no idea, but we can accentuate them if we want. Now I'm going to come back in here and lighten up this area with one more layer of this color. We are still not at our highest highlight. We are still working with this color. And I often will do this instead of just mixing a bunch of different sequential colors. I'll use multiple layers of the same color, and because they're thin, they will lighten as they build up. It's two different approaches, and it's up to you. The easier one is probably to mix a bunch of closer together colors, because then you can use your paint a little bit thicker. Whereas if you're using one or two colors that are much different, then you need to thin a lot more, which means that you have to know how to control that paint and how to work with it. So which way you do it with highlighting is up to you, of course, as always. But I tend to like to work with thin paint, and so I build up sequential layers of the same color, and it looks like I'm building up different layers of color just because my initial paint is so thin. Yeah. Controlling the paint. That is the problem, isn't it? Yeah, I'll get annoyed with just a little bit of how to, and this is kind of me and washes, like my love-hate relationship, why I don't normally use them is I find that they get to be a little too stark. I'm gonna actually glaze this now, I think. I'm impatient. So I'm gonna take this color I'm using right now, I'm gonna build a glaze out of it. Boop. So bring a little bit over, grab some water. It's got a lot of white in it, so glazing with a light color is fraught with peril. You are much more likely to get brush strokes and unevenness. You're going for the colored water. You can see that it's colored water just by looking at the palette and how it hardly colors any of it. I'm going to glaze this whole sucker and see if I like it. Remember, if I bring up my darks too much, it's not a big deal because I can always go back and reapply them. I'm going to grab my crappy mixing brush for this. And I'm going to just try to paint this all over. A light glaze is really meant when you feel like your darks are too darn dark and you want to bring everything up a little bit more. Sometimes when you've got very dark darks, let's suck off this blue extra water. When your darks are very dark and your lights are very light, you can get this disparity where it doesn't feel like it's the same piece, the same material. So when you want the overall effect at the end to be light, as with bone, you can do a light glaze. Just be sure to get all the excess water off at the end. I'm just using the very edges of my tips of my brush to bring the whole thing up just a little bit. I'm going to go to my lighter color, I think. Thanks, screen. We're getting there. I'm messing with the bone now because I'm like dissatisfied with it, so. And bone is like that sometimes. I forgot to glaze this part. So we're just going to put a quick glaze over it. This will also help to kind of minimize the wood, the streaky bone texture that I put on. So rinse out your brush, come back, and be sure to wick off any excess moisture before the model starts to dry. Once the model starts to dry, you're out of luck because you'll just strip paint up if you touch it while it's really starting to get tacky. So you want to pull all your excess water off while it's still wet and then let it dry. Touch it, then don't touch it. What is up, Screen Games? So if you haven't, I haven't seen you on here before, I think, Screen. Have you been on here before? But anyway, hi, I'm Ann. Welcome to the stream. We've been working on this guy, I don't know. We do a 6 model rotation, so I think he's had about 5 sessions. We did the skin, we did the teal, we did the blue. We're working on bone. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 sessions. No, I don't, Shadow Raven. I honestly just thin it until it looks like colored water, and I can only see the slightest hint of it on the side of the palette. There's no ratio, just like there's no ratio that's set for layering. It changes with the color. So it's best if you, I think on I'll take that back slightly. On the free thing, the free video, the thinning MSP paints video, Quindy has this link. The class I did for ReaperCon a couple years ago online, that is still up for free on Reaper's YouTube. I do give a ratio for glazes. Just a starting point ratio for glazes. But the bottom line is you'll get more mileage if you don't bother with ratios and you just like thin it till it looks like colored water. You want to still see the color. You can still see that this color is that color. So where it's pooling, you still want it to be there. You don't want it to be like totally too thin. But you want to pretty much just be able to see it on the side of the palette just a little bit. And if you're doing glazes, you probably want to be using a well palette. If you try to do them on the wet palette, you're going to be mixing every brush full of color custom. And the wet palette tends to wick the water off your brush, so you're never going to have, like, you need to really load up your brush to apply a glaze over a big surface. So just keep that in mind. Yes, Quindy with the thinning MSP paints. Also, on my Patreon, there is a handout for that class, thinning MSP paints. It is in the free section. So public posts. So if you're not a patron, you can go over there and snag it. This is intentional. And that will give you the summary very quickly. Now I'm going to take my top highlight and start really working that in here. I may do another glaze if I feel like it needs it. But this bone is actually coming up pretty well at this point. The glaze really helped. Thank you for the Patreon link, Quindy. But yeah, there's a couple of free things over there. So you do not have to be a patron to take advantage of my Patreon. I have a couple of some fun stuff, some stuff like that handout, very useful stuff. And of course, if you do become a patron, there is a lot more content. We've been doing this for almost 3 years. 3-year anniversary is actually technically this month, although I usually celebrate it in January. So that means that even tier 2 has like 36 pieces of content minimum. So it is an excellent value for a Patreon right now. Okay, so see how much that top highlight really brings it up. It's really a near white, especially against all this dark back painting. It's a document camera. We talk about this a lot, Screen. It's not, no, it's actually a lot of people ask because it's really good. It's a document camera by IPEVO. They were about $300. They went up during the pandemic because so many teachers use document cams for teaching virtually. And the reason they use them is, document cams obviously are meant to show you little text in, written, typed text in very good resolution. So they're actually a natural fit for this sort of thing where you need to be able to see the details. So I use my IPEVO VZX. There's also a wired version that doesn't have the wireless function, which I probably should have bought because I never unplugged the thing anyway. But yes, it's excellent. It has controls right on its stock so that I can control focus and zoom with the touch of a button without interrupting the stream, which is really nice. But the other part of this is also Screen, having the right backdrop for what you're working on and also having your lighting set up so that it helps with everything. You can have a great camera, but if your lighting and your backdrop aren't good, then you're not going to get the best results. So if you're thinking of streaming this stuff, or you already do, then I very much recommend messing around with different backdrops and different lighting until you really get a nice clear picture that's accurate with color and that can show everything. I mean, I can get even closer. I can show you all of my fails here. So if I'm trying to layer, you can see all the little brush strokes. You can even see tiny texture when I want to do it. I usually don't get this close because it's very difficult to stay in frame. Because then you have this tiny little frame that you have to stay in, and inevitably I will get out of it. But yeah, Reaper actually turned me onto these because Justin had gotten like an old model one just to mess around with, and I thought it was, even though it was an old model, it still was better than the webcams. So I went searching for an up-to-date model and found the IPEVO and really never went back. I love this thing. It's so nice to be able to get really good color representation in a really clear picture. No, I mean, the problem, I've got my lighting, I think, set perfectly at this point. And this is, again, I started messing with it when I went to do my Patreon stuff when I started that 3 years ago. And I feel like I dialed it in. I've had this setup dialed in for a while now. But yeah, the 920C is what I started with. But the problem is that you have to use the external software to really adjust the white balance and the focus, which really just was not. And having it fixed focus was also very annoying, and it didn't have much depth of field, and yeah, I could go on and on. But anyway, it's not a cheap camera, these document cameras, but they are, if you're really doing this stuff and you want to be able to show everybody all the brush strokes, this is worth it. I think almost everybody, all the pros who are doing this, if they're not using a real, like like a digital video camera, they're using this sort of thing. And for Twitch, honestly, you don't there's a limit at the resolution you can stream at realistically, depending on where you are anyway, so. There we go. Just wanted to pick out that detail a little bit better. It's just starting to look good. I don't believe it has a mic. I use a separate mic because I want good audio quality, Twistedoma. So I use a Yeti. Or a Blue Yeti, I think. And there are definitely better mics out there, and I've thought about upgrading my mic recently, but good microphones are very expensive. So it's like, I'm kind of weighing the pros and cons. Maybe I'll ask Justin for a recommendation. He's always up on the latest tech. But usually, Twistedoma, when you're doing this stuff, it does not pay to look for the all-inclusive. You really, each type of tech has its pros and cons and what it's good at and what it's not good at. So something that is an excellent camera is like going to like the steak and sushi restaurants. They either do steak amazing or they do sushi amazing. And if you're lucky, they do the rest of things okay, or even good, but not as good as they do their specialty. So trying to get a camera with a built-in microphone is a lot like that. It's just, there are limits, and if the camera is excellent, the mic is probably functional but not awesome. And when you're doing educational videos or you're streaming, people are going to be listening to your voice a lot. And so it's worth it to at least get a decent level mic that's a dedicated mic, in my opinion. And I believe that's pretty much what Justin told me and what I pretty much go by. Justin taught me a lot about how to do this stuff when we started doing it for Reaper when I was still there. So all cred to Justin. Oh no, it's USB. It's USB. I could probably, if my computer, I use my old gaming laptop for this. If I upgrade my system, maybe I'll switch to HDMI. But again, there's like a limit as to how much data you can really use, like resolution you can get on Twitch and still have your stream be smooth depending on your internet. So I'm not sure that it would be worth it. I don't know that the HDMI would really give me a better result. I'm going to do one more highlight, guys. We're going to take 2 brushfuls of the previous highlight color, and I'm going to drop a drop of pure white in this time. Actually, you know what? Not pure white. Let's do bleached linen instead. With bone, I almost always tend to go up with an off-white. Unless it's very, very shiny, polished bone, and I want that kind of to tell you, to give you that visual information that it's shiny, then I will definitely go up stronger. I think I'm going to need another drop of that. Yeah, well, cheap but good is kind of like, I'm not going to say it's impossible, Twistedoma. You can get a functional setup for cheap. And I don't know what cheap is either, but like what your definition is. But in general, if he's just going to try it out, yeah, just go with like a webcam or whatever. Just go with a Logitech webcam and it's just, yeah, I guess a functional mic. He might, if he's just streaming games, he probably can use a good headset with a good inline mic, a good mic on it. Most streamers, I think, as long as they've got a good quality headset, the mic will be good as well. At least for streaming games. But if you're doing like Patreon or videos or anything where you want people to listen to you talk for an hour, or even a half an hour, or even 15 minutes, if your mic quality is suck, people won't listen. You won't get it. So if he's just trying it out, then yeah, go for the cheap. If he is maybe more dedicated to it, then it's time to like look at, he'll have to look at better options slowly. There's a lot of people writing articles and blog posts about what you can, the equipment you can use. So I would recommend doing a little bit of research for a starter streaming setup. Just do some reading. There's probably a lot of recommends out there. But yeah, I think if I update, the next upgrade I do is probably going to be a new mic. It also depends on what his goals are in streaming, right? Like if he's looking at this as something that he maybe wants to make money off of, then he's probably going to need a better system. But if he's just looking at something that he just wants to do it for fun for friends and family, then yeah, anything will do. Yeah. Yeah, I would just do some reading on a basic streaming setup for gamers. And they'll probably give you, there's probably tons of info on this out there. Because streaming games is a different beast than trying to stream something like this, where you really do need a high quality camera or you're not going to have, really good results. Alrighty. So this is starting to really come up and look like bone. Now I've got to get these central pieces and some more highlights in there. Software noise line noise reduction. Yep. Thanks for the advice screen. Just going to bring up this color, the interior color a little bit. Yeah, but streaming is totally a slippery slope. You get into it and then you're like, I really want a better blah. And then I really want a better blah. And then, yeah. Then it can eat you. Because it is fun. At least I think it's fun. Obviously, I do it every day except for the weekends. Well, except for Sunday now. I do it every day except for Sunday. Since I do my own stream on Saturday. There, you've got some nice, bright, bony parts here. I do want to bring in a little bit more down here. Let's bring these along a little, but with a lower color. That's better. So not taking the highlights up all the way, but still doing a little bit of highlighting on the bottom. We can do that now because we have brighter highlights up on top. Just going to pick up some of this underside a little bit more. And then we can bring up our highlights a little bit stronger on the top for contrast. And it's okay if your highlights here are a little rough or kind of stipply because it's bone, so it's not necessarily a regular surface. That's looking good. We're getting there. Polishing up the top of the skull here with our highlight color to really bring it up. Now, one thing I will probably want to work on at this point is I want to bring up the horns on his head just a little bit with these same colors because this is coming up pretty bright, so it's going to be a little bit distracting. So I want to make the eye move around the model. Oh, that's nice. I didn't know that we did that for RVE. Starting a hobby podcast that has some gear recommendations. Nice. Thanks, Quindy. Thanks for that link. See, there is a ton of good information out there. Just hunting it down, you know, and Quindy is so useful that way. She's got all the links, man. All right, now we got a little stripey back here again. I'm gonna take that down with the glaze again. I'm going to rinse out my brush and I'm going to dry it off on a towel or in my case, my old jeans. And then I'm going to take it and pull off any extra paint. And now I'll bring back my highest highlight. Every time you glaze, you take down your highest highlight if you're not glazing with that highlight. A glazer is always going to color the colors you already laid down, so that's better. So if you put a dark glaze down, it's going to drop all your highlights and make them closer to your shadow. If you put a middle glaze down, it's going to pull up your shadows and drop your highlights. And if you put a light glaze on, it's going to pull your shadows and your midtone up to make everything lighter, like I did with the bone here. You're funny, Quindy. The human brain is a weird thing. All right, so let's come up and highlight these horns on top of his head to bring them a little bit more in line with this so that we can definitely have like a couple of bright spots on this mini. The horns are a cool thing to make light because they're close to his face. So making them light draws attention up here, which we want because his expression is very cool. And people always like to look at faces, right? So giving people a little extra help and accenting that face and bringing out the details is a really good idea. So we're going to get this edge, make sure that it's nice and solid. Oh, got a little bit of hair blorf. There we are. I prefer to remember what you walked into the room for. Hey, Stefan's World. He's coming along, he's coming along. We just worked on the bone all this stream. Got the bone staff set up. Yeah, I probably should do this little parchment strip because it's going to be a very similar color. I should do that along with the horns. So actually, let's color that in with our Griffin brown, Griffin golden brown. And actually, there's a little, I hadn't decided if that, I think that skull is a design and not a real skull. It's kind of like got the little chain coming out of its mouth. And it seems pretty flat. So I don't think I'm going to treat it as an actual skull. So we'll leave that. But anytime you see something else on the model that you're like, oh yeah, this would also be like bone or parchment, both of which are very similar colors. Usually you treat them with very similar colors. Just go ahead and block it in while you can so that you can tackle everything of the same color at once. Instead of like me always going, oh dang, I missed that part. So here we'll go with this lighter and warmer base coat, and we'll mostly concentrate on these yellow colors, the bottom highlight that I made. And the bottom of that is kind of swinging out, so it's going to get a better highlight than the other parts. It's also got a little kind of snap that it's attached, little rivet that it's attached to the belt with up top, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. I'll usually highlight around it to bring out that detail. And usually I will also highlight toward the edges of these, like, you know, same thing if you're doing marine, space marine purity seals, anything like that, this kind of like ribbon parchment thing. Kind of highlight toward the edges, toward the ends, wherever the item is kind of swinging out into the light as it does down below here. This is a very complicated miniature, which is kind of why we're doing it, Steven's World, because it can be challenging to do a model that's got so many different things on it and make it all look good together. There we go. Then I'm going to take my high highlight and just get the very edges of this little seal. And if we want to, we can look at those symbols that are etched in the surface. We can grab our brown liner, which is a near black, and we can write those on with a very fine brush, which is pretty much any brush that I'm using. Every brush I use is super fine. It's coming. I mean, I'm having to go slow because I don't want to like get too crazy with the colors. So notice how I'm just like, first this time I chose to stick with a neutral. Next we'll probably do some like brown leather, like this pouch around his neck, I think. And maybe the leather here. We need to kind of like do some of that. But neutrals, when you have a lot of colors on a model, lean heavily on your neutrals, like cream and cream, black, white, and dark brown, dark to medium brown. Yeah, you just got to break it down and go slow, Bull. Like, that's how I'm dealing with it. Whenever you try something that seems so complicated that it's overwhelming, it just helps to kind of stop and take a deep breath and say, all right, well, what things on here are bone colored? Let's do those. What things on here are brown leather? Let's do those, right? Kind of get it down to the point where you're like, oh, all right, now we're at, you know, random crap. Like what's gold? What's silver, right? Do those. And then by the end, there are just a few things that you need to actually choose colors for. And usually you want to choose colors based on the rest of the model. So like when we get to these potion vials, I will totally be going like red in the red-orange range. I'll be using the same colors we used up here on the skin, and I'm going to be repeating them down here. So that's really your solution. But yeah, I have a lot. There's a lot of tasks that I have to do, especially like the Patreon, right? There's a lot of levels and plus coachings. There's a lot that I have to do every month, and anybody, I mean, with a job probably has a lot they need to do too. And you just break it down day by day, step by step. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. And doing little bites just helps you keep from getting frustrated. So there we go. There's our little etching. But yeah, when I looked at this thing, every once in a while I like to do a super busy model, just because it lets me talk about how to do a super busy model. Oh yeah, these little needles up here on his shoulder. I think these are probably bone shards. Let's do these. So you just got to go around and go, okay, well, I'm working with this model, with this color. What else on this model could be this color? These little things, like if they are shards of bone, and that would make sense for a warlock or a necromancer, right? For material components. So these are great and they're a good thing to put this color on, because that against this black leather, they'll show up really well. And it won't distract too much. And again, it's putting this color up around the face. So it's a good place for it. How to eat elephants, yeah. Oh, the shipping is so messed up everywhere. Canada is a mess, right? Like Western Canada is a mess right now too. Because they've been having flooding all along the West Coast, where a lot of stuff tends to come up on the highway there. So it's been like just a train wreck. Seems like shipping all over is bad. All right, so we've got those nice little bone shards, and we've managed to put those in now. That's good. Yeah, I have a couple of friends out there, Grey Wolf, and so in our chats, our group chats with other friends, we hear about it. There we go. So we got those nice little bone needles up there now. That's nice. Let's get these horns figured out. Ah, I see. Customs issue. Weird. Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be a real Reaper question. But probably it's a Reaper Europe question, and so I'm not sure if we'd have the answer for that without touching base with our Europe peeps, our warehouse out there. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to bring in a little bit more of this pale color into the horns to just bring them up a little bit more. At first I was being pretty like just tentative about that, but now that I've got the bone staff in, I think I can go stronger. So oh yeah, there you go. help@reapermini.com. I'm going to bring in some of this Griffin brown to warm things up just a little. I'm going to brush it all along this bottom shadow area. So I'm essentially raising my shadow color on the top of the horn away from this dark color and making it lighter. pretty happy with how this is turning out today. Every little step gets us a little further along. This is where I feel like my method of painting in sections really helps. Because if you're only concentrating on a couple of things at a time, it is just so much better. Like, it's so much more relaxing. You don't freak out as much, and you have progress every day. It really, I think, encourages the whole, eat your elephant one bite at a time philosophy. Because you really are only taking a bite at a time and finishing it. And before you know it, you have lots of bites, and then the model is almost done. Yeah, that sounds like a customs issue more than a shipping issue on the shipper's end. But I don't know enough about it to know, really. That, I have no... The only thing I do is I order from Europe every once in a while if I'm ordering a bust or something. But I don't order very often, so I'm not very up on how that stuff works. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. But if you email help@reapermini.com, if Reaper knows, they will... they may take a couple days to get back to you because they'll probably have to contact our European warehouse and ask if they know what's going on. But if it's like... If Greek Customs is charging you a lot big fee, like a way out of line fee, I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. A lot of people ask us these questions during Kickstarter stuff, but it's like we do our best to make sure all the customs forms are in order, but I know we can't directly affect customs. Yeah. Yeah, it is a big ouch for sure. Very frustrating. Let's get a little bit more highlight on here. All right, now we have to check from the top because of course there's more texture up here. We've been highlighting it, looking at it from the side. That means there's still detail we have to bring up here. So yeah, every once in a while you have to look at your model like from above and below to make sure you're not missing anything that you should be hitting. So a lot of times we tend to just do what people do. We look at our model from the front. We never look at it top down. So we might miss some details. There we are. Got those nice horns. Ugh. That's a long way to go for a pun screen, but, you know, being gamers. If you do that, you may as well make the whole place a pun dungeon. But why stop with just one? Why not make a pungeon? And use like old sayings that people like, just like that, like, you know, that people have to really think about to figure out. It actually would be interesting if, like, every encounter the treasure was triggered by fulfilling some, you know, archaic saying. Yes, exactly. It's a pungeon. Somebody's must have made up that word before. But now you have to make up a pragan. What is a pragan? Yeah, that's true. That's true. Many people, especially pun lovers, would already be looking inside the beholder's eye. But, like, you could do, like, a bed mimic, you know, which you have to make back into a bed by killing the mimic. But once you've made your bed, you have to lie in it. And when you lie in it, then you see the treasure. Like, stuff like that to totally freak out your players. There's so many of those old sayings. You could have some fun. Ah, parrot dragon. Pragan. Interesting. And the parrot could spout all these old euphemisms, or not euphemisms, all these old sayings. The pragan. The pragan would, like, you know, would have learned all these old sayings from the wizard who created him. And that wizard is the one who created the dungeon, and that's why you have a pungeon. Idioms. Thank you. Thank you, Kirst. Or you have a sleeping dog, and when it wakes you up, it starts talking. When you wake it up, it starts talking to you. But all of its things are lies. So you have to interpret what it says and take it the opposite or in a different way in order to defeat the encounter. That would be even better, because then you've got the word lie in two different meanings. See? You could go crazy with this stuff. It'd be awesome. That would be a super fun dungeon, actually. That would be a super fun, like, puzzle dungeon. It'd be a pungeon, but it'd also be a puzzle dungeon. It would be fun. Once your players got in the spirit of it and realized that they're all, essentially, all the encounters then become riddles, right? And you've all got those players who really love, like, puzzles and riddles. David's one of them. And that would be a way to do it. All right, people. We are pretty much at the point, and I think we've done the horns. The horns are much more solid now. Notice that they're much brighter, so they definitely draw the eye more, which is good because it draws your attention up here. We're still getting a lot of attention up here because this red-orange is really vibrant, so it is definitely drawing your eye more than the rest. But notice how everything now looks a little better together, because this is because we're introducing neutrals. When you introduce neutrals, they're harmonizing colors. They make everything else a little bit more harmonizing that go better together. I don't know what the reason for it is. I always kind of thought maybe it just gives the eye somewhere to rest where there isn't a bright color. And so it makes everything just work a little bit better. So I'm very happy with where this is going now that I've got the bone sketched in. Yeah, it's that contrast that keeps your eye going toward the skin screen, I think. Because cool colors tend to recede. People don't look at them right away, but they tend to really be drawn to warm colors and light colors. So if you put the warm and light together, then you know, especially if I'm going to do a big gold bracelet on the arm here, you know, that'll put some yellow color there. So that'll also draw the eye. So color composition is real. And when you are going for a model that's this full of clutter, definitely figure out your most important part and draw the eye to it by using tight detail, light and warm colors, and a lot of contrast. And you'll be fine. I'm glad you like the color palette. I was dubious on it when I started. I do like doing red, blue, green, but the teal was a little bit different. And I may yet take down the blue a bit. We'll see. I think I'm going to do a lot of freehand on the blue. Maybe segment the cloak into two different areas. Do black up top and do blue on the bottom. Do something like that. We'll do a freehand on the back of this model for sure, though. We've got all of this cape, and it's like everywhere. Like there's nothing on the model in the back except for cape. So we totally need to freehand the heck out of that. So, all right, that's what we did today, guys. Gosh, we spent a lot of time on bone and parchment, but we have blocked in yet more colors on this model. I feel like it's really coming together now. What we are doing tomorrow is the bust. Actually, I need to put that on my list to finish priming her. I'm going to do a zenith prime on it. So we'll tackle it from there. Hey there, Luca, what's up? I bet. Well, it was almost a whole stream, so there you go. But yeah, so tomorrow we'll do the bust. We're going to get a zenith prime on her. We're going to choose skin tones, guys. So if you want to have a word in as far as what skin tones we paint our bust, our pirate bust in, you need to show up tomorrow morning while we're deciding, all right? So, Murdered Monk. I'm sorry. Well, we do it every day. Every weekday we're here, Murdered Monk. So give us a follow. And then it'll let you know. We do a rotation of 6 different models. So like we're doing this guy, and we're doing like bronze golem here, you know, this kind of thing. So we do a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to wish Luca a happy birthday every day, right? All right, I'm going to let you get to it, Luca. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today, and I will be here bright and early-ish tomorrow at the usual bat time on the usual bat channel. Thank you, everyone.